Good afternoon, everyone out there in YouTube land. My name is Jared, and this is my channel, Mazda B3K. In this video, we are going to investigate an AC compressor or hose failure, along with repairing a sliced up ABS sensor. Without further ado, let's get started. All right, guys, this one's kind of weird. Let's see if I can't get you into what I've already found out. So way down, yeah, you guys can't see a dang thing. I'm gonna have to take more apart than I can show it. But basically, one day my wife was driving and she said the air conditioning has gone hot and the ABS light has turned on. So I had just done some work. That's what this is, this contrivance. And it's in another video where I made it so that when you set it to max AC, it cuts off the flow to the heater core over here to help your AC blow colder. So I thought I'd messed up something here and maybe messed up something in the lines over here. But no, when I started feeling this again to get an idea of what was going on, there was from the compressors, that's the compressor clutch at the very bottom there. From around that area, after I put a can or two of Freon in, it just was billowing huge clouds of Freon from down there. So I have a major leak and I don't know how it happened. What I do know is that it probably happened at the same time as the ABS problem. And I'll show it to you here in a bit once I get more stuff out of the way. But basically, there is an ABS harness line that goes to the passenger front ABS wheel speed sensor. It's been cut in two, and that's the problem. That problem's not too bad. That's splicing some wires. I've gotten really good at that. The other issue, the AC, I don't know if the suction and discharge lines failed, which that's the two lines that you see down there. There's one of them that go directly to the compressor. I don't know if I have a failure down there or if the compressor itself failed. So that's what we're investigating today. One other thing, I have replaced this compressor before, and the way I did it is not fun at all. You don't have to remove a bunch of stuff, but it is horrible to get the compressor in and out. So this time I'm going to take some more stuff apart, but you'll have a lot more room and you guys will be able to follow along. And it's still not going to be very fun. You're going to have to take a bunch of stuff apart, but we actually can get to the compressor, get it out, get it back in without needing specialty tools, which for you guys to be able to follow along at home, I felt that was kind of important. So let's get started. So as you can see, I've already gotten started. I took off the end of the air intake. That's this guy right here. Pretty simple to do an on-off on that. It sits in like that, so you just take it off. Next thing we got to do is we've got a pair of 8mm here. We have an 8mm on the clamp. We have 8mm here. We're going to take the actual filter housing away. We're going to disconnect the IAC. Or no, it's the MAF. Disconnect the MAF. That's going to give us access to the top of the engine. And what we're ultimately going to have to do here, just to give you the heads up to decide if you want to do this, is we're going to be taking the fan shroud and fan out. So in order to do that, we need to release the upper radiator hose where my finger is. So you're going to lose some coolant. You may want to use this as an opportunity just to go ahead and do a drain and fill on your coolant. I think I'm going to do that. But if you don't want to do that, you're going to lose some and you're going to need a bungee to kind of hold this guy out of the way as you work. Yep, I have had all sorts of HVAC issues with this thing recently. Blower randomly died. I replaced it, made a video about that. It'll be on the channel in a couple of weeks. That was not very fun to replace. It's much easier in a truck than it is in this van, but figured it out. And then I've got an issue where if you put it under heavy throttle, there's a vacuum leak somewhere, and it makes the vents change position and dump all the air to the floor versus to your face. And I think I've traced that to a bad power brake booster, which is the thing that your brake reservoir, your master cylinder, is mounted to. I already made a video checking the check valve. Check valve's okay. So replacing that is next. That will be a different video. But these were things that I could kind of put up with when I was the primary driver. But now my wife's driving. You know what they say, happy wife, happy life. So, oh, I hope I can get that back. Anyway, loosen this guy up. It is a captive clamp, so it's not going to run away on you. Get these bolts out of the way and go ahead and wiggle that off. You want to go slow because, like I said, you've got your MAF sensor connected here. Just want to take that off. Then the whole assembly comes out. All right, next thing we got to do is, you see the silver thing? It's got a hole there on the left, and then it sticks out over here, and there's another hole. It's kind of hard to see. That's your tensioner. We're going to need to take this belt off. So you're going to take a 1/2 drive. I think it's a 1/2 or it's a 3/8. It's one of the two. And you're going to get on this tensioner and you're going to crank it to the... can't remember if it's right or left, but you're going to crank it in one direction. That loosens tension on this belt. And you don't need to take it all the way off, but you want to take tension off of it. Before you do anything, make sure you take a look and that you got a belt diagram, which I do right here, because this thing can be real annoying to put a new belt on. Make sure you have a diagram. If not, you can find it on the internet. Yeah, and I also noticed, I don't know if it's going to show up on camera or not, but my belt is fraying. See that? I'm going to have to look at that a little further, look for other damage. I'm probably going to have to replace this belt. Curious why it's fraying. I've never actually seen one do that. And this is a good, it's either a Gates or a Dayco, and they're pretty well regarded for their belts. All right, let me get my breaker bar in there and we'll get this belt moved. There is a crow that has decided to start visiting me. This is his second visit in the last few days. He likes to talk, but I don't know what he wants. Looks like he's chasing some bugs. Anyway, random things around the house. All right, that's the petcock for the radiator. It's on the bottom, on the driver's side. Like I said, I'm going to use this as an opportunity just to go ahead and do a drain and fill of my coolant. I'm still trying to get some oil out of it that got pumped into it when the cooler failed. But if you don't want to do this, I'll show you what you got to do with the upper rad hose here in a minute. But I'm going to go ahead and drain this out, and we'll keep on keeping on. We're also, while we're down here, we're probably going to go ahead and pull, let me back the zoom off here. We're going to pull this shield off. It's 3 push pins. we're going to need that for when we actually try to remove the compressor. So I'll show you that. I'll get a trim tool and we just pop these out. All right, so there's our push pin, right? So you can get a trim tool and just kind of get under this guy like that. And then you just pull that out. And you're going to repeat that 2 more times. I remember where the other pins are. And then you kind of have to canoodle this thing out. But once you canoodle it out, you know, you just set it aside. All right, upper rad hose that we need to move. So this is going over it. We can just go ahead and get this out of the way. I need that out of the way anyway because I am replacing that booster. So that works. And then what we're going to do is before we slide the clamp, go ahead and have a way to kind of pull this up and out of the way. And we can hook it like that. That we probably want more ups on it, so we can hook it into something further away so it'll pull more. I have it actively draining right now, so hopefully it's not too messy. And yes, there is a specific kind of plier you can use for this. Oh wow, that is disgusting. There's a lot of oil that got into that. Gross. Uh-oh, sounds like we're draining at warp 9 now. Yeah, we'll do that for now. Yep. We're getting kind of crazy here on the drainage. So for the folks at home, coolant is poisonous if you consume it. It does have a bitterant in it now, so most critters will steer clear of it. But technically it is not classified as a pollutant, so if you spill some on the ground, you don't have to feel terrible about it. Come on, quick. There, I think I got it. All right, so something like that. I'm probably going to adjust this because I really need it more to go that way so that I have full swing range with the breaker bar to get to the belt. And again, you can sneak in a short breaker bar kind of around the belt, the fan and this hose and everything, but it's a pain in the butt, and I'm just not doing pain in the butt today. I'm taking it slow, doing it right. Good Lord. The amount of emulsion in there is gross. Thought I'd gotten most of that out, but I guess not. All right, let's take a look at how you're supposed to get the fan off. So I've got a tool, as you can see. It slides over the nuts that hold the fan pulley to the water pump. And you're supposed to take a breaker bar, run it through there. The tool I purchased has a very slight angle on it, so you do have to put it on the right way or it won't bite and stay. And then it also comes with a 36mm wrench, which is the other thing you need. That's the actual nut on the fan. But I happen to have a 36mm wrench, a real one, that is way better than what they give you, because I've done this before on a Ford Ranger. And this one is not counter threaded, so you turn it to the left just like you normally would to loosen it. So lefty loosey, righty tighty. Do be careful if you somehow find this video and you're working on something older, something different. It may be this nut maybe counter threaded down here. And you'll know it's counter threaded because they cut these little grooves in the edges of it to let you know. In that case, you would need to turn it to the right to loosen it. But this one is normal threaded, so you just turn it to the left. So that is how that works. I just successfully cut myself in 3 or 4 places doing this, but do this and it becomes very easy to actually take the belt off, because it is this nut that gets in the way of your breaker bar to loosen tension on the belt. Here's a better look at that attachment. So as you can see, it's got a hole for a 1/2 drive. Like I said, it's got a wee bit of angle to one side, so you got to put it on the right way or it just slips off. You are not supposed to use an impact hammer on this. Do not. Just use a breaker bar. You need leverage, not hammerage. This is the wrench they supply. This is a 36 millimeter. So you can see, compared to my wrench, this thing's kind of cheesy. Again, they give you room to put a breaker bar in there, help you pull. I couldn't get the leverage with this end, switched to that, didn't have problems. But anyway, this kit is a Powerbuilt 647074. Got it on Amazon, wasn't terribly expensive. It makes removing the fan way more better and a lot less stressful. Should just be we lift up, if I remember right. Yeah. Oh, there's hoses fighting me. And there's a big honking heavy fan in the way. Something on this side sticking. Oh wait, I forgot. There is a clamp for the lower rad hose that connects to the lower shroud. So we got to pull that clamp first. Here is aforementioned clamp. So pop that out and then we should be able to get the shroud out without too much of a problem. If you can't get this by hand, you should be able to get it with a trim tool. It's the same kind of setup. Yeah, I'm gonna get a trim tool. Pop that loose and we'll get it right out. There we go, that's a lot better. It's still gonna catch on just about everything. It helps. Go and get your fan out, then come back, fight with the shroud. All right, let's get this guy out. Come on. There we go, turn it a little bit. Comes right out. Man, now we have all sorts of room for activities. It's gonna make getting to the compressor way more better. Way more better. Which is the goal, because last time it was like 8 hours of fighting, cussing, and swearing, and using a bunch of wobbles and U-joints, and it just was not fun. We're not doing that again. All right, belt's out. Let's take a look at it. So we've got, so it looks like to me that this is some sort of little kind of extra there. I could probably trim that off. It'd be all right. Same thing here. This is some extra. And here, but none of the actual ribs are damaged. They look really good. Except for here. Oh no, we had a rib getting chewed off. Yeah, because this has all the ribs and then that's just gone. It's been chewed off across most of the belt. What I'm seeing are the remains of it. So that's interesting. I wonder if I got the wrong belt or if I didn't get the belt centered correctly. In any case, I'm going to require a new belt. So, groovy. Something worth checking out once you get this far in. I'm going to pick you guys up and take a look down, see what kind of access we have now. All right, this was our end goal. Is we wanted to have a lot of room so that we could go after our compressor. So these are the suction and discharge lines, or the high and low pressure lines to the AC system. It's a combined piece that goes down to a single piece of metal that screws or bolts into the top of the compressor. And from what I saw when I put Freon in, I saw white Freon gas billowing out right here. So our problem is either in our compressor or in this line. But if we want to take this out, the best way to do it, take the compressor out, but trust me, because I did it the hard way last time, is we're going to want to take apart our suction and discharge where it meets up with the rest of the system. So for our low pressure side, which is the big hose, that's right here. For our high pressure side, which is the more narrow hose, that's right here. Now you notice how we've got 2 wrenches here, or 2 spots for wrenches. We're going to need 2. And then over here, looks like we just have 1. Hopefully this is stout enough it won't try to warp on us when we try to crack this open. But I can already tell you that I vacuumed my AC system out after testing. I actually have an AC machine picked up on Facebook, and this system is empty. It won't hold a vacuum, but it has no Freon in it, so I have no problems taking this loose. And if you are here and watching this video because you're thinking about it, you need to get your system vacuumed out if it's not already empty, or you can pick up a, well, getting a vacuum pump's not hard. The problem is you need something to catch the Freon. And that's where you start needing recovery systems, and those are a few $100s. So your best bet, take your ride to your local auto whatever and have them vacuum out the system if you want to open it by yourself. Just bear in mind, if you choose to work on it yourself, they may look you in the eye and say, okay, well, if you screw this up and take it to us, we're not going to work on it. Because strictly speaking, I know I'm blathering, but I want you guys to know, because I've tangled with HVAC stuff a lot on cars. Strictly speaking, if you get a leak that is bad enough that the system runs almost out of Freon, what you're supposed to do is completely vacuum it out. You're supposed to replace the dryer, which is this guy over here in the corner where this line's going in. You're supposed to replace the orifice tube, which is placed in line somewhere in here. You're supposed to replace all of that and get it vacuumed out, get all the moisture out of it, do those repairs, vacuum it out again, make sure you can hold 30 inches of mercury for at least an hour, then fill it with Freon. I'm not doing that. I'll vacuum it out to get the air out and the moisture out, but I'm not replacing the dryer and everything. Not at this time, not in the cards, but just letting you know the right way to do this. So I can already cut off the folks in the comments. Jared is doing it this way today. This is how Jared's going to do it. You can either do what Jared does or try to do it the right way, okay? Alrighty, now that we have plenty of room for activities, I can show you what happened with the sensor. See that? That's not the sensor proper, that's the wire harness behind the sensor. And the other end of it is supposed to be down there in that frame rail where you see the brake line. You see that outer loom right there? That's the other side of it. So it wound up right there. But that's not hard to fix. That's 2 wires. That's, you know, patching some stuff in, relooming it. Not too worried about that. But what I found really interesting is that failed right around the same area where I'm seeing the AC leaks. So I really would like to know what caused that. Now, before I go any further, just to get a little bit more room, and because I don't like swinging metal things around a battery, I'm going to take the battery out before I take these guys out. So let me go ahead and do that. All right, I've got the stuff figured out size-wise for the low pressure line. Now, this is a 27, but you notice we got a lot of flex in there, and I don't like that because if I start cranking on this, there's a good chance I'm going to twist or damage something else. So I found you can take a 32, put it in like that, and then we can just do this, just like that. And in that way, excuse me, we can get this guy out, no problems, just like that. Seal looks pretty good. All right, got to make sure we don't lose that seal. Let's tackle the high pressure line. That's going to be smaller stuff. That's like maybe a 21 and a 24, something like that. Let me go figure out what those wrenches are going to be. All right, for our high pressure line, we need a 19 and a 22. All right, so this needs to go, yep, ow. So that hurt, but it came loose. And there we go. So on this one, we need to keep an eye on the seal. I'm probably gonna put a bag on it or something like that, just so it doesn't go anywhere and everywhere. I don't want the seal getting dirty. The other one, the seal is gonna stay on this side of thing, on the condenser side. Not so worried about that. I'll probably still throw a bag or something over it. Okay, we do have a little bit of electrics to take off here. Don't know, let's see it, but the high pressure cutoff switch is on this line. It's plugged in right here. Should just be a pull the tab kind of gig, but I gotta see which direction it goes. There's tab. Oh, come on. All right, well, I'll figure that out. But you need to take this off so that we can actually get the compressor and these suction and discharge lines all out as one package. And in case you're curious, your low pressure cutoff switch is hiding right there, attached to the dryer. That's your low pressure, and the other one's your high pressure. All right, so let me work on that. And then comes the really fun stuff. We're gonna have to go bottom side and work on actually getting the compressor bolts out. All right, guys, welcome to the underside of the engine in the front. That is the radiator you were staring at. What I wanted to show you is here is our compressor, right? It has spin you around, got a switch right here. I can actually move the camera correctly. Yeah. Ow. Hang on, there we go. Switch right here, that is the clutch switch. We will need to take that off. A little easier to take off once you get the compressor out, but that's got to come off. But what is most exciting to me is if you look, all right, where is my camera? Which side is it on? There we go. Look right there. You see, guys, see that? And the rubber line right there, that's our failure. Zoom in on there, right there. That's where our Freon leak is. So we're gonna need a new suction and discharge line. And I think I even know what did this. So, you zoom out, let me kind of spin you guys around, have the camera upside down. Here is this is that harness line that got thrashed. Check this out. There's 2 marks there. The end is frayed, and then look at that. I think that is rat hair. And it's all the way up and down this. So I think what happened is there was a rat that was in the van And then my wife drove off to take the kids to where they were going. And he stayed in here and he started nibbling. And he made the fatal nibble. He nibbled on this first, and then he nibbled on the AC up there. And that was it. And I think at some point he jumped off the mortal coil, personally. But yeah, there's the other end, give you a better view of that. So again, I'm not super worried about that. I just need to move loom back, snip in, splice in some wire. I should have reach and access now that I've cleaned everything out. Fix that, and now at least I understand why this failed. That's a pretty huge leak. I feel better now. I thought maybe I had, when I last replaced it, I'd done something wrong, but no. This is it's rodent damage. All right, so compressor itself, we're still gonna need to take it out in order to get our line off. There is 3 bolts that hold this guy in, and they're all 10 millimeter. There's one in the bottom in the back, and it's hard to see, but there's one in the top in the back. And then if you look right, where'd he go? Come on. There we go. A little tricky to see. I'll put my finger there. There's one right here. They're all 10 millimeter. This one I should be able to get at with a wrench. The 2 in the back, hopefully I can use a socket. And I'm hoping it won't be so gnarly this time because we got a bunch of stuff cleared out of the way. So advantage of going ahead and taking these lines off is now we can use our suction and discharge lines as a handle. And help get the compressor out of here. Okay. Be careful of your radiator as you are fighting to get this thing off. All right, so there's a zip tie there. I need to cut that. Let me get that cut. I'm probably the one who put said zip tie there. I don't know why. I probably did. Okay. There we go. There's our compressor. All right, a couple of things I had to do to help get this out. There is I think this is a crank position sensor. And the way the harness runs, it gets all up in the way of the compressor. So you want to disconnect that before you start taking these out. And I had it wrong. Your 3rd compressor bolt is up top. It's actually up here. Show that to you. And here's your clutch connection. That's got like a long leg on it if yours isn't broken. So you just get like a little flat blade up in there, push it out, slide it right off. So there's that. You should wind up with 3 long 10 millimeter headed bolts. My 3rd one decided to run away somewhere, so I need to find that because I can sweat missing that other bolt, but not this one. I need this one because they're expensive if you have to buy them. Ask me how I know. All right, last thing to do is to separate the suction and discharge, at least for what I'm probably doing today. Because I gotta, order parts and wait for those to come in and all that. So that's the last thing I'm doing today, and then the rest of the day I'm gonna spend time with my kids and rest because I'm actually sick right now. Let's go check that out. All right, let's get this off. I think this is a 12 millimeter. On the original compressor, I think it was a 10, but on this application it's 12. Okay, we need more power. There we go. Love this thing. All right. We're gonna throw a bag over those seals right there. You can also take a look inside the compressor here. I don't know if that's shrew or pag oil or what. I don't see any metal debris though, which is what I'd be really paying attention for. But I'm going to throw some tape or something over this, and then I'll clean these with some oil or something before we put the new line on there. But there's your problem. It's this guy. All right, that's it for today, guys. I'll be back in a couple of days to repair the wheel speed sensor and hopefully install a new suction discharge and start putting it all back together. Good morning, everyone. Today is a new day. I'm going to pick up where we left off. I've gotten all my parts in, and we're just going to go ahead and take care of our tensioner here. This has gotten kind of sheared out of shape, and that's my fault because I kept trying to do this the wrong way. So I'm going to go ahead and replace that. And it turns out you're supposed to replace these about the same time you replace your idler pulley. And I absolutely replaced this pulley when I first got it running because it was screeching like a banshee. We've got 3 10mm bolts we got to work on. So that's 1, 2, and 3. All right, so go ahead and get these out. Get a new tensioner in there. This is a relatively straightforward one. And after that, I'll go ahead and probably do the wire splice. And we'll go from there. It's going to be a long day because I decided to also be a mad lad, and I will replace the dryer. I did buy one, and I will show you what you got to do to try to do it. The challenge is going to be here, this quick disconnect. There's a method to the madness with these. You got to be strong enough to push them in far enough to make it happen. And if you've not disengaged one for a while, it can be real sticky. I did disengage this one a couple months back trying to fix something else, so this might work. We're going to find out. So our replacement tensioner is going to be a Dayco 89237. Hopefully this is the right one. What does it say? Made in USA? How cool was that? I don't see that a ton anymore. Okay. So for orientation purposes, here's what you got. Here's our Dayco. Here's our original Ford. It's a Leitens. I don't know how you pronounce that, but they did a lot of the in-house stuff for Ford, at least in this era vehicle. So here's your original Ford. There's the 1/2 that's gotten kind of rounded out. Here's a 1/2. Here's a thing. Looks like we got 3 bolt holes. Cool. So we should just be able to slot this guy in. All right, let me do that. Okay, moving on to our broken speed sensor wire. Bottom of it's here. So what we're gonna need to do is probably about right there where there's already another chew mark. Camera, come on. You can do it. Come on, there. I'm gonna cut the loom right there, cut that back. In fact, I'll probably cut it back here. I've got some spare loom, but we're gonna cut it far enough back we can get good clean ends. I've got some leftover wire from when I was taking a security system out of a Miata. About the right size, and I will splice that in. And then the trickier part is actually going to be cleaning up the other end, which is it's right there. I'm wiggling it with my finger. So we're probably going to have to get that from the top, pull it up and get it prepared. And in fact, what I may do is I'm going to work the top and do the crimping up there first. So then I can just swing this down and I'll have room to work to get this guy on it. Yeah, I think that's how we're gonna do it. So let me go pull this up top side, get some slack, and then get to it. That sound you hear is me flushing my coolant. As I mentioned, or don't know if I have or not, but when I brought this thing back to life, the oil cooler failed and it pumped a quart, 2, 3 of oil into the cooling system. And ever since then, I have been working to try to get that oil back out. And it turns out, once you get an appreciable amount of oil in your cooling system, it is a pain in the tuchus to get back out. So I've been doing a lot of drain and fill. And you can see this bucket's not very clean, but there's oil sheen in there. There's just nastiness in the cooling system, because I think the previous owner, all they did is ran water, because they were in South Florida and they thought it doesn't get cold enough to need antifreeze, without realizing that antifreeze has a bunch of rust inhibitors in it to keep your cooling system from rusting out. So I'm having to undo all of that. Okay, work done. So as you can see, I use butt connectors, and these are the marine type. So they have a heat shrinkable plastic sleeve on them. You heat it up, it shrinks down to help keep moisture and things out. So there's my extension wires. It is going to matter which wire goes where, so I'm going to have to pay attention to that. But now I've taken care of the really hard part up top, and now we can go down below, and it should be much easier because everything's in reach. And what I'll do is kind of compare wire lengths to figure out what I need to make this fit neatly inside of that. See that white plastic thing right there? It's got 2 loops. It's got a brake line through 1 loop, and the sensor harness is supposed to go through the other loop. So I'll do what I can to make it look neat and tidy. And the last thing I'll do is I heat shrink everything, and then I put the loom on and some electrical tape. And hopefully that'll be the end of this repair. I can move on to other stuff. All right, there we have it. There's our repair, and I made sure that green with black stripe went to green with black stripe, and green with red stripe went to green with red stripe. So that's the repair. We've got everything shrunk down. That should be pretty good. I'm gonna go get that extra bit of loom I was talking about, get that overlaid, and then get this back in its little holder down there, and this part at least will be a good repair. And I'm pretty pleased with how it turned out. It was not fun to get to, but doable. So we do that. After that, we will get started with the actual AC repair. Alrighty, the first thing that we need to concern ourselves with are these O-rings. Now, the one on the left is okay. I mean, I gotta clean the shmoo off it. I'll lube it with some PAG oil. But the one on the right has that. There is a nick in the seal, and it wasn't leaking, but I don't like it. So I'm gonna see if I have something laying around that'll work. Word to the wise, you can't use just any old O-ring. You need to use one, I think it's a Specialty Viton is the AC O-ring. Now normally they are green in color, but that's not an industry standard. As you can see, these are black. They can be whatever color the factory wants them to be. But you're going to want to replace this with a AC compatible O-ring. You can't just go grab any old O-ring, throw it in, it'll fall apart. And then you'll have a real problem on your hands. So I've got a kit, I've got some leftover stuff from other projects. I'm going to see if I can't find something that'll work for this. All right, so that's my kit here. Here is our O-ring. I wound up using a small jeweler's flathead to get it out. This is a kit that was supposed to work for a 2001 Ford F-250 and have all the replacement O-rings. Spoiler alert, it did not. But you've got O-rings like this one that look pretty close, so we're gonna kind of check that out. And I think it came with two specifically for the where it connects to the compressor. And we also have this, got it from Harbor Freight. So this is the specialty O-rings you need. That's high something butyl something. I can't remember now. I did a whole bunch of research. Here we go. It's even spelled out for me. Hydrogenated nitrile butadiene rubber. HMBR. This is what you need for AC stuff. So we also have inside this mouthful of a kit, we got some stuff. We got, sizes listed out. I don't know what this is supposed to be out of the tin. So I'm thinking though that this is probably a 13/16 by 1 1/16 by 1/8, because this seems to match up pretty well with that. And let me slide this down, you can see. And this seems to match up pretty well with that. Now, if I had not lost my micrometer for like the 15th time, I would bust that out and actually take some measurements to see if, yeah, we're about where we need to be. And I may go look for that, but it looks like I'm gonna have some stuff to replace this with. And just out of an abundance of caution, I will, because this is the last time I want to have to dig into this. Unless of course another rat chews a hole in it or something. Because I'm behind, guys. I have a pile of work to do in my yard, my house, and YouTube. Keeping things going for you guys. So anyway, let me see if I can find that micrometer. I have an idea of where it might be. All right, I had to fight with my micrometer a bit, but it is working now. So let's see here, we get 0.135 inches. I got to figure out what that is in fractions. Let's see, 0.125. So let's figure out what that is in fractions. So looking through it a little bit more closely, that's essentially 0.125. That's 1/8. So that kind of makes sense. We need to measure the interior diameter without deforming it. Getting 0.868, so I'm gonna guess this is 13/16. I just gotta go figure out that fraction. And then we wanna check the outside. Should be something similar to that. I get 1.03. Should be 1 1/16 probably on the outside. Yeah, so let me go poke at some stuff, find some fractional answers, but I'm pretty sure this is a 13/16 by 1 1/16 by 1/8 O-ring, which is what this is supposed to be, and what I suspect this is supposed to be. So I think these are identical, the same size, and we can use them. I think since I have the replacement, and since I did mangle these up a little bit, the first time I did this, I'm going to go ahead and replace both of these. So I just got to get this out. I mean, these are still going to be good in a pinch kind of thing, but like I said, I really don't want to have to take this all back apart. All right, so when we go to put it back in, we are not going to put this back in dry. That's not cool. You're going to use PAG oil. Now this is for R134A, so it is PAG type 46. Had this for forever from a job I did on my B series truck way back in the day. So what I do is I'll pour it out in the cap, and then you guys can't see it, but I pour it out in the cap, and then I just dip the O-ring in it, kind of run it in a circle, get it nice and lubed. Once we're nice and lubed, then we install. So that's one. And that's two. All right, so now we got those installed. Next step is we're going to go ahead and attach the new suction and discharge assembly. I checked it the other day when it came in. It is the correct part. We will need to transfer over the high pressure cutoff switch. But otherwise, we can go ahead and we can seal this off so that junk doesn't get on these O-rings and whatnot. Okay, our part number for our hose assembly is a Four Seasons 56683. Okay, gotta get this. That's a plug to keep this clean and dry, right? Get that out of the way, and then since we're out of the vehicle, we can, instead of waging crazy war trying to get this to go in, we just put it in, and it's not a thing. See, this was one of my main mistakes last time, is when I went to do this part, I tried to reconnect this piece after I put the compressor back in. And that's a bear to do it that way. I do not recommend it. And as you saw, I scratched the casing a bit and I damaged that O-ring. So not worth it. Much better take it out and then put the hose back on here and then put the assembly together back in. Next thing we need to do is here. This is where we need to transfer over the mount for the, really just, that's the high pressure cutoff switch is what this is. And we got to transfer the piece over off of the old hose assembly. And once that is done, then this will be ready for reinstallation. They were even kind enough to include a couple of O-rings for the connections up here and all that good stuff. After I get this transferred, we're going to set this aside and we're going to go work on the dryer. Okay, so this was a 14 millimeter wrench. It wasn't on there crazy tight. Just lock this side in, get your wrench right there. There you go. So we got a little O-ring there. Should have a new O-ring from the new kit, so I'm not super worried about that. Get that transferred over. We'll lube it up with the PAG oil that you saw a moment ago. Let's get this guy on there. So to make more room to work on the dryer, we need to take the battery tray out. There's a couple of 13 millimeter bolts. You also got to take this out if you are working on replacing the blower, which I just did, not right before the rat chewed into stuff, basically. So this comes out, and you shouldn't drop your battery hold down along the way. Now I gotta go get that, but it's somewhere. I'll find it. Yeah, I see it. Alright, got the battery hold down. So get this out of the way, and this gives us a lot more room to get in there and fight with the dryer. And now, next thing is actually disconnecting all the lines for the dryer. There's two we got to worry about. All right, so I have actually loosened this dryer before because you got to move it out of the way in order to install the blower. So I already can tell you there are 3, I think they're 8mm bolts that are hidden behind all this wire, kind of back there. There they are. There's 2 of them. There's a 3rd one at the bottom. So those are the 3 that hold it in. But what we also have to take care of is, this is another switch, another cutoff switch of some kind. That's going to need to be transferred over to your new one. We have our quick disconnect here that we got to fight with. Got to make sure you have the right tool for that. You got to have a disconnect tool, otherwise you're not getting this apart. And then our other connection is right here that we have to take out, because if you follow this hard line, it goes back and it goes into a soft line, which then comes into the dryer. So this shouldn't be hard. It's just a 2-wrench thing. You got to find the right wrenches. This one might be interesting. This is, you know, pop the connector off and then another wrench to take this off. So that, none of that's bad. This is a tricky one. So I'm gonna go after this one first. Okay, so this is one style of disconnect tool. This is a 7/8. This is the one we're gonna need. And how this is supposed to work is you slide it in and you get it real tight. And you'll kind of feel it give when it slides all the way in. And then you kind of push in and pull out. That's how you're supposed to do it. The problem is we don't have a lot of give on this line. It's basically all hard line, a little tiny flex section, and then hard line again. So the last time I did this, that was a real problem that I had, is that I couldn't get enough in there to make it pop loose. So I think what I'm going to do this time, since I know I'm taking the dryer out, is I'll go ahead and take those 3 bolts out that I showed you over here. So that way the dryer will be free floating. And I'm hoping that will give me the wiggle I need so I can basically take my hands and push in like this. Because that's what needs to happen. It comes down to a contest of strengths in this case. It's not a great design. And I'm not the strongest guy in the world, which is why I was leery about trying to replace this. But let's see what we can do. Alrighty, updates. So I had to take this out of the way so I could take this apart. This is some 8mm right there. This is a 27 on this side and a 22 on this side. And that gets that apart. But now, as you can see, dryer is pretty loose. So hopefully I can squeeze the disconnect in there, get it out. One other thing you can do, if you think your disconnect's a little rusty, you can spray some penetrating lube up in there. Sometimes that helps. Or if it's gotten crusty and dirty and like dirt particles are preventing it from releasing like it's supposed to, it can help with that too. So I'm probably gonna spray a little in there and then wish me luck, because this thing's a bear to get apart. All right, it is out. So we've got some O-rings we want to try to preserve. I don't know if the new one comes with O-rings. I hope it does. Got that going on. Do need to transfer this over. So that's good. This actually was starting to crack and wear a bit, so not a bad thing. I ran a nail through my pinky. That was good. I don't recommend doing it. And furthermore, I don't recommend using a nail to get a nut out of a stuck socket. That did not work the way I intended it to work. So over here, in order to help facilitate it getting out, I had to take, there's a ground stud over here. It's got a ground on it. So I took the ground out, that's a 10mm. And then the stud itself is an 11mm, that's the thing I injured myself on. Or it's actually a 7/16. It's an SAE that snuck in there. So you get that out of the way. you disconnect this little signal wire bobber from the top of your starting solenoid relay right there, and you're good. You can get this whole leg out of the way, and then you can get the dryer out. So, all right. I'm stopping for lunch, and then after lunch, we'll get the new dryer in, we'll get the new compressor in, and we'll get everything plumbed up and plugged back in. I've got to put a little piece of, I'm going to use some heater core hose right there, so this won't make a tapping noise when we're driving. And after that, we're just going to put all the junk we took apart back together, and then let it sit for a day, because as you can see, got the compressor sideways because that's how it wants to lay right now. But good rule of thumb with compressors, or anything that has compressor oil, PAG oil, you want it in its resting position, its normal operating position, for about a day before you try to use it. And I'm pretty sure that car ACs fit the bill. So I'm gonna get it all back together and then just let it sit. I got other things I can work on while I'm waiting. Just to let you know, it's a 17 millimeter on getting this switch off, because it's gonna have to be transferred over to the new dryer as well. Okay, so we have our new dryer here. This is a UAC HA10021Z. As you can see, we've got our short hard line with our quick disconnect, and then we have our longer line that's got some flex in it, comes around. Still have that here, though that's a bit more stiff. We have a spot for our cutoff switch, from where we had our spot for a cutoff switch. And it looks like our bolt pattern is roughly the same. This should fit. So we're gonna go ahead and thread it in and just start putting it back together. I'll go ahead and transfer pressure switch over first and then put everything else back in. All right, let's sneak this guy back in here. And sneak is definitely the key word here, because you got to get, I think this goes over, under, and this has got to rotate more. Okay, so that's roughly where this needs to be. It's about right here. Now this is down, which is good. And then this is going to come over like this and do that. So I think we're more or less where we need to be. And we can get the rest of this to line up. I think I'll stick a bolt in to hold this roughly in position, and then I can work on getting the rest of this attached. So as you can see, there was a pair of protective caps. Got to come off. So I got that off. I'm going to lube that up with some PAG oil, and then with these quick disconnects, you shove them back together until you kind of feel them click, and then you pull, make sure that everything's good. And then that's it, you're done. All right, let's see if this will go together. All right, I'm gonna have to fight with this for a bit. As you can see, it's real tight. And probably need to back that one screw I've got in out so I can click that together and then anchor the dryer. Otherwise, this is gonna be a battle that doesn't need to be a battle. One thing I forgot here, it's a screw that actually sits in the top of the air box here, and that's what holds this line tight. Totally forgot about it. Take that out, and this becomes a whole lot easier. So, yeah, that's how you do that. All right, let's try to squish this together. So, heard that click, right? And you'll notice I can't take it apart now. So we're engaged. So that connection is good. Now, pull this guy back down because he's a booger. But I need to, see, they put a plastic cap thing I gotta take off, and then we should be able to get these two to line up, get them in, and then we'll lock the dryer back into place, and then we'll put this little guy back on. Should be good. Well, pretty clever. It's a 19 millimeter, and then our big nut here is a 27. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this tight. I think that was a 22 on that side. All right, so dryer is now officially installed. As a reminder, there are 3 bolts, 1, 2, and then down there is 3 that you got to get in. There's a cutoff switch that needs to be plugged back in. In order to make room, we had to take this ground, these 2 grounds actually, off and take the stud and the nut out. So all that needs to go back together. And then remember, you got to have this connected and this connected. And we had to take our fluid fill tube loose, pair of 8 millimeters there, get that back in position. And if you manage to do all of that, well, you're in good shape because you're done. The dryer is in. So now we'll put the battery tray back in. Go ahead and get that taken care of. And we will move on to finally putting the compressor back in, which that's going to be a little bit interesting. I don't think it'll be horrible though. And then we'll just keep putting stuff back together. Alrighty, so I've got this placed right on the edge of the engine cradle frame piece right there, and then I'm going to go below and wiggle it the rest of the way in. Remember, we have 3 super long 10 millimeter bolts that we'll use to lock it back in position. We're also going to need a wrench and a couple of different lengths of 10 millimeter to get these 3 in because of what they gave us to work with. So get your tools, get bottom side, and let's get this knocked out. All right, a couple of things, guys, as you work on putting this back in. Remember, the compressor sits kind of sideways. So remember, that's where your bolts go through. So you need to have those holes kind of going into those inspection windows. And the other thing is before you get it fully seated, you have to plug the clutch back in, which is this guy right here. And you have to thread the connector between the high and low pressure lines to get it to drop right in. So you want to do that before you shove this guy the rest of the way in, because then it gets hard to do. And I took our sensor wire back out of its holder just to give me some more wiggle room to get this guy in. But things are starting to slide in now because I had forgotten about that, and looking good. And also, don't forget, once you're fully back in, you've got this timing sensor or a crank position sensor, something along those lines, that the wire is going to kind of go under and then plug in. So let me keep shoving it in there and then get it lined up with our bolt holes. So at this point, I've gotten all three started. And remember that the guy up top, that one you should slide the bolt in first before you push your compressor all the way back in. Otherwise he's a pain in the butt to get in once everything else is in. So I'm getting these to where they're just finger tight like that. And then I'll do final tightening once I get all three of them that way. That way I'm not putting stress on threads. You can see there's cable here's in the way, but you see I've got the, still got to get the third guy in all the way. You can, it's the sensor I keep talking about. So this is your wrench guy, because you can do it with your fingers to a point, but yeah, this is where your 10mm wrench comes in. Get that knocked out, and then we snug all three down, and I'll go ahead and plug this guy. Well, not yet, I want him out of the way. But then we plug him back in, and then hot diggity, compressor's back in, and we can put the belt back on. All right, updates. So we needed a 27 here and a 32 here. What I found here is, even though this has got the little cut marks like it's counter threaded, it's not. You still turn it to the right to tighten it, and you got to shove that in there good and deep, and you'll kind of feel it slide in, kind of pop in, and only then will this actually try to bite. So that's that. And then on the high pressure side, this is a 22 and this is a 19. And you know, just kind of line it up and it should spin right on. Get it snug. Don't forget your high pressure cutoff switch. That thing we had to transfer over. Make sure you plug that back in. Also put our little coarse threaded screw back in. And with that, the entire AC system is resealed. And that's pretty cool. So at this point, if you were hooked up and positioned, you could, you know, open up your vacuum ports or your high-low ports, pull a vacuum, see how you're looking. In my case, I need to move this to get over to my vacuum machine, so we got to get the belt back on, and the fan and the shroud, you know, all the rest of that good stuff reconnected, and see where we stand. Yeah, that'll work out. Kind of excited though, because the, knock on wood, but the hardest parts are over. The rest of this should be a lot more straightforward. And now in my case, I also did a coolant drain and fill, so I gotta refill the coolant. You know, clean this hose, put it back on. And then my plan for tomorrow actually is to remove the brake booster, because I'm pretty sure it's faulty. But I can at least crank this up, make sure that I put it back together in one piece, all that good stuff. I'm not gonna run the AC system so I have a chance to vacuum it down, make sure it's holding 30 inches of mercury in vacuum, or 30 inches of vacuum, I guess is how you say that. And then I'll go ahead and fill it, because it takes like 5.5 cans of 12 ounce cans of Freon to fill this thing. And that gets expensive if you're not able to buy it in the like 20-pound bottles. Today's belt is a Dayco 5080990. And I'm going to throw that on there. Remember, refer to your belt diagram for your vehicle to get this threaded back on appropriately. 2 general different paths depending on if you do or do not have air conditioning. If you don't have one of these, you should be able to look this up readily online, but this makes life a whole lot better because this belt's a little bit tricksy. You know this thing has 2 idlers? That's the one that was screeching. This one doesn't. I should spin it and see how it spins. Let's see. That's so-so. I'll let it ride for now. And there we go. A couple of pro tips here. So I'm not super worried about this being a hair off. That should kind of home itself once everything spins up. You want to really make sure that your ribs are lined up appropriately on the ribbed pulleys. So that's your power steering pump, crank pulley, and your compressor. Because if they're not lined up right, that's how your belt gets chewed up, like what happened to mine. So I checked all that. That all looks really good. And we're within the bounds of the pulley on the alternator here. Even this is another grooved one. So we should be in good shape. This belt appears to fit correctly, and the tensioner worked correctly, and was able to put a breaker bar in it and pull it down, and all that looks good. So all that's nice. Second pro tip is when you're going to feed this belt in, you need to fold it kind of flat and then squeeze it through here, and that's how you feed it down to the AC compressor. I started there and then I kind of worked it around, and then I had to pull the tensioner down so I could get it around the crank. Now that that is done, the next step is put the fan and the fan shroud back in. The shroud, if you look down there, let me zoom in, it has 2 feet that just sit in those clips, there and there. You've got 2 bolts up top, right? Those are the silver bolts we pulled. But when you lower the shroud in, you have to lower the fan in with it, right? And then remember, our fan is a regular thread, so you'll turn it to the right to tighten it up. And you will need to actually snug it because it's not counter threaded. It's gonna, see if I get this right. How they used to do it is they would counter thread it, so you'd have to turn it backwards to loosen it, and they did that so that as the engine spun the fan, it was opposite in the direction of being loosened. So effectively, as it spun, it would keep the nut tight, prevent it from falling off, I think is how that worked. Anyway, you will have to snug this, so you'll need to get that tool again and your nice big 36 millimeter. Take care of that. And then after that, I mean, we've got an upper rad hose, and we've got our brake booster line, and we've got our MAF and IAT stuff. That's it. Well, I'll have to, that little spot where I take a zip tie and I put a little piece of rubber right there. But yeah, we're getting there. All the tough stuff's behind us. Alrighty, got my tool back out, tighten that up as tight as I could, so we'll see what that does. Next thing is to get this upper rad hose on. Remember, just gonna squeeze this clamp, let the hose get all the way seated, put the clamp on top of some meat here. You don't want clamp sitting half on solid material and half just sitting on hose. That doesn't work out well over time. After we do that, we put our air intake stuff back together. And in my case, I need to fill with coolant again. And the last thing we're going to need to do is put our battery back in. Oh yeah, I'll keep trying to forget about that, but then we'll be able to move this guy over to where my diesel is right now, and we will pull vacuum. All right, so as you put things back together, don't forget to reconnect your sensors, things like that. Where is this connection? My screwdriver is too big for it. Awesome. So I'm gonna have to figure that out. I wonder if it's like a 7 millimeter or something. See if I can't get that done with a 1/4 drive. But this will go here, and we'll get the rest of the air box put in. Take care of that first. Yeah, it's getting kind of exciting. Take a look over here, make sure It's seated correctly. All right. Okay. Too small. Okay. Got another sensor to get attached here. Get the stinking connector. There it is. Okay. That's in. Alright. I never did find that one screw I dropped. I don't know where it went. I'm hoping I'll find it when I move the van, but go ahead and get this together, and battery, and putting the brake booster vacuum line back in, and coolant, and we'll be ready to move this thing. All right, moment of truth. We've got our coolant, we've got everything back together, the battery's reconnected. Let's see what happens when we crank. And do note, I have not reinstalled I haven't forgotten about it, but there is that little shield that goes on the bottom. I'm gonna reinstall it tomorrow when it's not quite so wet. It's been raining on and off for the past hour or so. Anyway, let's crank this and see what happens. Well, it sure sounds nice. I didn't hear any kind of the clitter clatter that I've been hearing last couple cranks too, so I wonder if that had something to do with the tensioner or the belt. But there's that. Now let's go inside and see if our ABS light turned off. Okay, check it out. No lights. Beautiful. So that means we got the belt right. It means we got the tensioner right. It means we got the compressor back in right. It means the compressor's clutch isn't locked up, but I mean, we knew that. Got the belt on right. All of that went right. So if you've gotten this far and it's running like this, congratulations, excellent. Next step, I'm gonna get the key from my diesel, move it, put this guy in place. We'll pull vacuum on it, and I will show you how to do that. And we'll see if we can hold a vacuum. Okay, so this is what we need to do to pull vacuum. I actually have an AC machine. If you didn't have one, you could, as long as the system's empty, you could use a standard vacuum pump to do this. But the same basic premise. You're going to hook up on your low pressure and high pressure ports. You're going to open up these valves. Okay. Just like that. And then in my case, because I have the AC machine, it's going to say, no, I want vacuum. It's going to try to make me recycle, and there's nothing to recycle. So yeah, all right, fine. Recycle. Oh. Yeah, it's just go to recycle. Anyway, I'm going to get through all these menus to make it work. And what we want to see is that this gauge will go down to 30 inches of mercury and stay at around 30 inches of mercury after the vacuum cycle completes for, say, half an hour to an hour. If it does that and that needle doesn't move, it means our system is sealed and it's as tested as we can test it, and we can go ahead and start filling with Freon. So check it out. See how we are approaching 30 inches of mercury? What it's doing right now is it's attempting to recover any Freon that might be in the system. Obviously there's not any there, but it makes you do that. It's going to do this for 5 minutes, and then we'll get to the vacuum phase. But while it's doing this, it's pulling a vacuum. So this is what we want to see. And when the vacuum pump turns off, we want to see it stay this way for about half an hour or so. If we do, we're ready to fill with Freon. Alrighty folks, it's been about 45 minutes, and as you can see, this hasn't budged. System is still holding the same level of vacuum as it was holding before. So I'm going to declare it good, and we can proceed with fill. Okay, time to do math stuff. So it says that you should be using 1.181 kilograms or 4 pounds with the rear AC, but we have a custom rear AC. So what we should be looking at is 2 pounds, 12 ounces, right? But then Pro Air says that, where is it? Right there. That vehicles with a Pro Air rear AC system require an additional 10 ounces of R134A. That's your PAG oil, so it requires less than what Ford says. So Ford wants 4 pounds for their rear AC system, but this does not have that. It has a custom one because it's a conversion van. So we are looking at 2 pounds, 12 ounces plus 10 ounces, 16 ounces to the pound. So that's 32 ounces plus 12 ounces. It's 32, 44, 54 ounces of Freon. So let's hold that number. All right, so this is your standard can you pick up at Wally World or the parts store or whatever. It is a 12-ounce can. Let's do some math. 12 times 4 is 48, so you need 4 cans. That's not going to quite get you there. You're still going to wind up 8 ounces short, which is 3/4 of a can. Assuming that you lose an ounce or so per can because you can't quite get everything out, you basically need about 5 cans of Freon if you're using the Pro Air system in a conversion van to fill this guy up. So we're going to need 5 cans. Fortunately, I have, I think, 6. Okay, so with these self-tapping cans, there actually is a little bit of an art to it. And let me show you why. So when you run the spigot down, what you're actually doing, as you can see, is you're pushing a little peg up. And what that peg is supposed to do, if you look at the top of a self-tap, self-sealing can, is it basically it's a check valve. It's got a little flapper. So you want to push it down enough to open the flapper, but not enough to break the flapper. Because if you break the flapper, when you go to remove your tap, which is what this is called, anything that's left in this can is going to out into the atmosphere because you broke the flapper. It's not a check valve anymore. So moderation is key here. Push it down enough so that Once the system starts pulling Freon, we'll see it slosh through the check glass on the manifold, but only enough to do that, not enough to break your flapper. Now, for us to get started, we are going to need to turn the engine on. We're going to need to set the air conditioner to max AC and set it to maximum cold, and then we can start. We can go ahead and thread this on here. And you're going to just a little bit, you'll hear it hiss, like right there. That should be enough. The flapper's not broken, but the can has been tapped. So once we get the engine running, and we open up some valves, we should start seeing stuff get pulled. At this point, you're not seeing anything happen because I have not opened up any valves. We need to open up the valve that is over on the check port on the car, and we need to open up the low pressure valve at the manifold. That's it. We do not need to open any of the high pressure valves to fill. Okay, notice there's stuff going in the sight glass, right? That's Freon. The only pressure we have is the pressure coming off the can. If you're doing it right, you should start feeling the can get cold. And there you go. Air conditioner just started getting enough pressure to try to run. So we're going to want to take the can, kind of do 12 and 3 with it. You'll see it come in waves through your sight glass, and you'll feel by weight as the can gets more and more empty, and eventually the can gets completely empty and you switch to the next can. Okay, 5 cans of Freon later, here's where we stand. So the current air temperature is about 82 degrees. And there is a relationship between the air temperature and what your AC pressure should read on the low side. And at that temperature, at sea level, we should be reading between 40 to 50 psi. And we are reading about 43 right now. So that's fine. I'm okay with that. It could be that even though Pro Air says you only need 10 more ounces, maybe it needs a little more than that, but we're within the butter zone. Compressor's quiet. It's running constantly. It's not really cycling on and off too much, which is good. It's not short cycling because of a lack of Freon. Some other evidence we're doing good is this line is cold and sweating, doing its job. This is the low pressure line. High pressure line should feel kind of hot. It's very hot. Again, we should be seeing that because that's the exchange out. Some other stuff we can do is I'll go get my temp gun and we'll actually take a look inside, see what it's blowing at. All right, let's see what the temp gun says. Yeah, probably have to keep it pointed in just the right spot. Let me bring you back when this thing actually gets down to a temp, because it's blowing really cold air. It's not, I assure you, it's not blowing 50-degree air. There we go, that's getting more reasonable. It's making my eyes water, I'll put it that way. So we are blowing in the 30s, which, if I can get that just right, there we go. So we're in the upper 30s on that vent, which I'm pretty happy with. That's kind of where you want to be. And again, there's kind of a trick to this. You got to point it at just the right spot. Yeah, something like that. I'm good with that. So we're blowing in the 40s and up front. Let's see what our Pro Air rear AC is blowing at, because I've noticed it doesn't blow as cold as the fronts, but I've never gotten them to actually blow cold before. So let's see what it looks like now. So for this van, what Pro Air did is they installed 4 vents that can pivot. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And let's take a look what we're getting out of these. I don't expect it to be as cold as up front. You guys can't see a darn thing. Alright, let me keep the gun on this and I'll let you know what it reads. Alright, for these rears, the lowest temp I got was about 57, 56 degrees. And I don't know if that's how the Pro Air system works, or if I have an expansion valve clogged up in the back, or if the system's a tiny bit low on Freon. I honestly don't know. But these are blowing colder than I've ever seen them blow. The overall temperature in the van is pretty comfortable. So I will drive around like this for a bit and we'll see what that does. And for now though, I'm going to consider this, finally, after a full day of work, a good repair. So don't forget, after we've done everything that we've done, we need to put our clamp back together for our lower rad hose, which we had to, that's part of the shroud. So we got to do that. And then we have a shield you got to put back in. This one's kind of annoying because I always forget where the holes are. Like, I think that this is one of them right here, maybe. And there's one, pretty sure right there. So you're just gonna have to fiddle fart with it, get it back in. I always forget where exactly it goes, and I always have to fiddle fart with it for a while until I figure it back out again. I mean, I'll bring you back when I get it in and I can point out the holes to you. All right, location time. So I did have that one right. This hole here in the passenger frame rail next to this big old bolt right here, that's one. Your second one is going to be in the shroud itself, and it's a little bit to the left of the clamp right there. So, and your third one is going to be in this little, in this K-bar, the engine rail, or whatever you want to call it. It is, oh wow, I'm trying to get it to where you guys can see and I can see. There we go, it's right there. And it's right above it is a brake line and our wheel speed sensor stuff. It's kind of directly below the power steering pump. And that's your 3 locations.